What would you suggest to any youth in Jane and Finch who are considering a law career or even just post-secondary?
Well, first, the post-secondary is very important, and if you choose to come into law, obviously I would welcome that as a lawyer in need of other good lawyers who have a social justice kind of orientation, because we need good lawyers in that area. But law isn't for everybody. I mean, and just because you choose something other than law doesn't mean that you're copping out or anything. There are other areas in which a person, who cares about issues of fairness and poverty and so on, can make an impact. But so I choose to focus more on the post-secondary because really, in this day and age, at the very least, you have to have a post-secondary education. And things have gotten to the point where a first degree isn't enough.
Yeah.
If you want to make yourself marketable, you have to, at a minimum, either you're going to get a master's degree in something, or you're going to run your own business, or you're going to be a professional of some sort. But anything less than that, you're going to have a hard time. And so these kids that drop out of high school and think that they're going to have any hope of being able to be successful are kidding themselves. There's no shortcut to hard work. It's a lot of hard work. There are a lot of obstacles in terms of paying for your post-secondary, and let alone achieving the level of academic success that you need to continue. And then after you've done all that, to actually try to find work.
Yeah.
So you don't have to end up back on your parents' doorstep.
Yeah.
Okay, it's
a long journey.
I don't want to discourage anybody, but when you're starting, I mean, it was 8 years for me of after high school, 3 years for a first degree. I did sociology, and then I took 2 years off after that, and then tried the LSAT, and 3 years of law school, and then a year of, I think we had about a year of articling and 6 months of bar admission exams, something like that. And so altogether it's about 7 or 8 years, and so when you're just starting out, it seems very, very overwhelming, but actually, once you get into it, the time starts to go by fairly quickly, and as I look back now, I've been practicing law for 23 years.
Wow.
So that's 23 years after the 8 that I put in to become a lawyer. So you can do the math and try to figure out how old I am and how young I am.
But it's definitely worth it to pursue.
It's definitely worth it to pursue. And the time, the 8 years or so that you spend pursuing a professional career, whatever it is, it's a drop in the bucket of time. It might not seem that way, but now at my current old age, looking back, those years in my 20s getting qualified, they passed like months.
Yeah.
And now it didn't seem like it at the time, but now looking back, and it does eventually pay off. And you should know that any area of post-secondary pursuit that you may explore is worthwhile. The challenge for you is to demonstrate excellence in your chosen area. So, for example, at law school, we had members of the Royal Ballet who were pursuing a second career. We had retired Army generals or Navy admirals, people who were looking for a second career, cops, writers, actors, musicians. In fact, there's a group there. Half the people in that picture are professional musicians and lawyers. They were professional musicians before they became lawyers.
Yeah.
The point being that the common denominator is you got to be bright, and you got to be articulate, excellent reading and writing skills, and demonstrate excellence in your chosen area. And of course, self-confidence and so on. And from there, you can do anything, whether it's law or whatever you choose to do. But make sure if you do choose to do law, that you do it for the right reasons, not because your parents want you to do it.
Yeah, of course.
It's not about status validation. It's about, for me, it's about trying to help people. And that's why I charge some of the same rates for some stuff that I've charged, for the last 15 years, 20 years. It's not really about the money. It's about trying to help people and make a difference in your community. That, to me, is what the value of a legal education is. Being able to carve out another $1 million on the tax laws for some corporate company. That to me is not a productive use of legal skills and knowledge. When some person is being charged with some criminal offense and can't afford a lawyer to represent them, and they're innocent, and the only thing that's going to save them from being wrongly convicted is having good legal counsel. Okay, that to me, you take the skills and you give them to the group or person that is most needy.
Yeah.
Right. That's how I see it, and so that's why I've put a lot of time in the Jane Finch community.
Yeah, your knowledge has been put to good use for sure.
Oh, we're trying. Many others have helped too. It's a team effort.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Do you think that York does enough for the Jane and Finch community? Or do you think they could do anything differently?
Well, that's an interesting question, because there was a time when many of us who try to do community work in Jane and Finch were concerned that York wasn't doing enough.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they send their PhD and master's students into the community to pick our brains so they can glean information for their master's theses and PhD theses, and they don't pay us for our time.
Mm-hmm.
And then they leave, they get their qualifications and move on up their career ladder, and they forget about us, and all that intellectual capital that we've generated does not get put back into the community. That was an ongoing thing for a long time, but then along came Susan Levesque, who was very sincere, and I think she was working in the president's office at the time, and she had a very successful community outreach program that resulted in the TD York Engagement Center being set up in York Gate Mall.
Okay.
I think there's some place there called The Spot as well.
Yeah.
And that's sort of served as a useful sort of liaison point between York and the community, because York in many ways is a big white elephant that's really hard to get to. I mean, you think about it, if you don't have a car or something, York is just such a huge amorphous kind of place, and you don't know where to go to get help. But having that point of community contact in a place as accessible as the York Gate Mall is a big plus. And from what I've seen, York has been, in the last few years, doing much more than they were in the past to have a presence in the community and to be more helpful to some of the community needs that a high needs area like Jane Finch has.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to give York credit for that, and I haven't been as prominent in the media as I used to be in terms of criticizing what's wrong with Jane and Finch and who needs to be helping more.
Yeah.
In part because York has been doing more, and they still are. Now, we're still not there yet. There's still a lot more that York can do, but I think York should be commended for the efforts that they've been making to bridge that gap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely some positive changes.
Mm-hmm.
And is there anyone you look up to?
I look up to anybody who can teach me something. But yeah, we all have to have mentors.
Yeah.
You got to have a mentor. I don't know of any successful person who made it without having at least one mentor. I've had several.
Yeah.
I don't know how I could have done it without them. Starting right back from high school when I was learning how to write essays, and I remember this one gentleman who taught me all about colonialism and capitalism and how unfair things were historically, and why some countries called underdeveloped countries became underdeveloped, and that whole thing got me thinking about social justice and everything. And from that point, I met others who showed me a lot of really useful skills that I've applied in my everyday life and in my academic life. You can't make it without a mentor.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, how did being featured in the Now magazine article affect you?
Well, that was really wonderful to be recognized in that way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there are many others who are far more deserving than me of that kind of notoriety and exposure. And I'm very fortunate and humbled that they picked me. And yeah, so it's been good, obviously, to be recognized, for doing positive work in a positive way.
Yeah. Well, that's all the questions I have for you. Thanks for taking the time to answer them.
Well, thank you very much for coming and giving me the chance, and I hope I didn't talk too much.